திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். புழியர்கோன் வெப்பொழித்த புகழியர்கோன் கடல் போற்றி. ஆழிமிசை கல் மிதப்பில் அணைந்த பிரான் அடி போற்றி. வாழி திரு நாவலூர் வன்றொண்டர் பதம் போற்றி. ஊழிமலி திருவாத ஊரர் திருத்தாள் போற்றி. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். So today we are continuing the story of Sundarar, and in the last session we had seen Sundarar's return from Tiruvottriyur and how he lost both his eyes and how he got his eyes back in Kanchipuram and then returned one eye in Kanchipuram and came back to Tiruvarur and got the other eye back and all that. And we had also seen how he had sent Sundarar had sent Shiva as a messenger to his wife Paravayar, and how that triggered Eyarkon Kalikam and nayanar's anger, and how Shiva played a leela and gave Sulai to Eyarkon Kalikamar, and how Sundarar had to go and cure it, and all the story we have seen. So that's where we are continuing from, and today is going to be the final episode of Sundarar's story. We had seen in the last 3 sessions from his birth till this point. So Sundarar is back in Tiruvarur, and he was living happily with Paravayar. And again, as we know, they have a lot of guests coming in and going, and they do a lot of charitable work. And so basically, as a grihastha, living with Paravayar, Sundarar always is in need of money to take care of expenses. So once he went on a short trip towards Nagapattinam. If you know the map of central Tamil Nadu, Tiruvarur is about 25 kilometers west of Nagapattinam. Nagapattinam is a major port on the coast, and then Tiruvarur is about 25 kilometers west from there. So there are several temples in between. There are things like there's a major temple called the Sikkal. That's also there. And then he goes to Nagapattinam, and he sings a very wonderful padhigam in that Nagapattinam Sthalam. He gives a shopping list. He must have gone there. Paravayar must have prepared a shopping list for Sundarar, and he took that shopping list and went to Nagapattinam and sings a padhigam. Pattur Pukkirandundu Pala Padhigam Padi. In that padhigam, he gives a long list of things that he wants. He says, I want gold, I want diamonds, I want nice clothing, I want scents, I want horses. So he gives a big list, and at the end of the padhigam, obviously Shiva gives all of them whatever he wanted. And then he comes back to Tiruvarur, and he was living in Tiruvarur. And at that time, we had seen in the story of cheramAn perumAL nayanmAr, another one of 63 nayanmArs, who was a Chera king, and he ruled Chera kingdom from a place called Kodungolur, and the temple in that place is called Anjaikalam. And that king, as we have seen in this story, he was a great Shiva devotee, and he would, every day when he finishes his puja, he will hear in his ears the anklet sound of Shiva. Nataraja's anklet sound he will hear, which implies that, his puja is complete and Shiva is pleased with his puja. So this is how his daily puja will be going on. And one day, he finished his puja, and but he did not hear Shiva's anklet sounds. Then he was feeling very, miserable. He said, I must have made some mistake, and Shiva is angry with me, blah, 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 right? So he was very upset. And then Shiva immediately, makes him hear the anklet sound, and then, tells cheramAn perumAL nayanmAr that, I was listening to Sundarar's padhigam in Chidambaram, and I was so mesmerized by this padhigam, so sorry for the delay. Something like that. So cheramAn perumAl nayanmAr was quite amazed. Is there a devotee like him that who sings a padhigam and Shiva is forgetting himself? So he wanted to go and meet that devotee. So after a few days, he made arrangements for with his ministers and others to take care of his kingdom, and he comes to Chidambaram. And he comes to Chidambaram and worships Shiva Nataraja there, and then he learns that Sundarar is in Tiruvarur. So he comes to Tiruvarur, and Sundarar welcomes him, and they become very thick friends. cheramAn perumAL nayanmar stays with Sundarar's stays with Sundarar and enjoys his hospitality, and they become very, very good friends. So they go to Tiruvarur temple, and Sundarar takes him to other neighborhood temples and other places nearby. And after some time, they both decide that they will go on a tour to see the temples in Pandya kingdom. The Pandya kingdom is Madurai and that southern part of India. So Sundarar and cheramAn perumAL nayanmar, they both start, and then they visit various sthalams, right? Nagapattinam, Vedaranyam, and other sthalams, and then reach Madurai. And Madurai is the Pandya king. So Pandya king welcomes Sundarar and cheramAn perumAL nayanmar. And it so happens that that Pandya king has married the daughter of the Chola king. So the Chola king was visiting Madurai at the time, visiting his daughter and son-in-law. So all the Chera kings, Chola king, Pandya king, all were in Madurai at the time, and they visited the temples in Madurai. In Madurai, we know that there's a big temple, and then there are other temples nearby. And Tirupparamgundram is another major temple. We typically know it as a Muruga Subramanian temple, but it's also a Shiva temple, and Sambandar has sung padhigam there, and Sundarar has sung padhigam there. So we have padhigams for Shiva in Tirupparamgundram. And then cheramAn perumAL nayanmar and Sundarar, they visit other kshetrams in Pandya kingdom. Places like Kutralam, Tirunelveli, and then they come to Rameswaram. So from Rameswaram, they worship the Shiva in Rameswaram, sing padhigams and all that, and then from there, Sundarar sings padhigams on some of the kshetrams in Sri Lanka. In those days, Sambandar has also been to Rameswaram and has sung padhigams in Rameswaram. And he had also sung padhigams on some of the kshetrams in Sri Lanka. Similarly, Sundarar also stays in Rameswaram but sings padhigams on some kshetrams in Sri Lanka. And then they return back to Tiruvarur. And then after some time, the cheramAn perumAL nayanmar wants to return to Chera kingdom, because he is a king, right? He has royal responsibilities. And as he was about to return to Chera kingdom, he invites Sundarar to come with him to Chera kingdom and see the sthalams in Chera kingdom. And Sundarar agrees, and they both start on their journey from Tiruvarur. They start walking, or they start on the journey towards southwest. And as they visit some temples on the way, they come to a temple called Kandiyur. Kandiyur is one of the Attavirata sthalams. The 8 sthalams where Shiva did acts of war or valorous acts. Like the Tripura Samharam and kicking Yama and all those things. Like that, in Kandiyur, the Kandiyur is associated with the plucking of Brahma's head. As you know, in the Puranic stories, Brahma once had 5 heads, and at some point in time, he gets very arrogant, and Shiva destroys his arrogance by plucking one of his heads. And that is a Brahma Kapalam that Shiva is holding in his hand. So that plucking of Brahma's head, that is associated with this Kandiyur sthalam, which is about 10 kilometers from Tanjavur. So they worship Shiva in Kandiur, and then cheramAn perumAL nayanAr wants to, they both want to visit Tiruvayyaru. Tiruvayyaru is about 2-3 kilometers from Kandiur. Kandiur, and then you walk for a few, like a couple of kilometer or 2 kilometers, and then there is Kaveri river, and on the other side of Kaveri river is Tiruvayyaru. Tiruvayyaru, as we have seen, is a major kshetram. Tiruvayyaru occurs in Tirunavukarasa's story also. If you recall, Tirunavukarasan wanted to go to see Kailasam, so he goes all the way to the north, and then at some point in time, because of his age and body condition and steep climb, he is not able to move any forward. He is just lying there at some place, and Shiva tells him to take a dip in the nearby lake, and then I will show you my Kailasam darshanam. And then Tirunavukarasan takes a dip there, and then when he comes out of the lake, he is in the temple tank in Tiruvayyaru. So he got teleported from Himalayas all the way to the south to Tiruvayyaru. So the Tiruvayyaru is a major kshetram. And so they both come to the Kaveri river, and they have to just to take a boat and cross the river. But that time, the Kaveri river was in floods, heavy floods, and in those days there are no dams, right? So when floods come, they come in a big way, and you have to wait for the floods to recede, which may take a week, may take 10 days, whatever is the time. So they are both there, and Sundarar wants to have darshanam of Shiva in Tiruvayyaru. So from this side, across the river, he starts singing a wonderful padhigam. Paravum parisondru ariyen. In that song, he says that Kaveri river is in big floods, and I cannot swim across this river. And there are no boatmen, right? When the river is in floods, boats will not ply on the river. They would have tied the boats to trees and other things, and the boatmen would have gone, and so nobody will be able to cross the river when it is in floods. So Sundarar is singing, Paravam parisondru ariyen. I cannot sing, in that song he says, Kaveri is in floods, and I am not capable of swimming across this river. O Shiva, how do I see you? After he sang that padhigam, and from there Shiva says Olam. Olam means, it's a common word which says, protect me as well as protection, right? I will protect you, or a protection. So Shiva says Olam, and then at that instant the Kaveri floods, they stop. Not only Kaveri floods stop, it becomes like the Kaveri parts into the Kaveri flood stops on one side, and then there is no water on the flowing, so they can see the dry Kaveri bed, river bed. So Sundarar and his cheramAn perumAL nayanAr and other devotees, they all walk across Kaveri river to Tiruvayyaru, and after they have crossed, and then the river starts flowing again normally. So Sundarar is so happy, cheramAn perumAl nayanAr is so happy that Shiva made this great miracle so that they could have darshanam of Shiva in Tiruvayyaru. So they worship Shiva in Tiruvayyaru, and then they proceed to the Kodungallur, the Chera kingdom. So they, after maybe several weeks, maybe a month, they reach Kodungallur, and cheramAn perumAl nayanAr is enjoying the company of Sundarar, and they will go around the kshetrams nearby, and Sundarar is enjoying the hospitality of his friend cheramAn perumAl nayanAr. So after some time, maybe a month has gone by or 2 months have gone by, Sundarar wants to return to Tiruvarur. So cheramAn perumAl nayanAr is the king. So he showers Sundarar with lots of gifts, and then he sends him back to Tiruvarur. So Sundarar and his entourage, they are coming back from Chera kingdom back to Tiruvarur. They cross from there into the Coimbatore area. So they cross into Coimbatore area, and then they are walking, and from about 30-40 kilometers from Coimbatore, there is a place called Tirupur. In today's geography, there is a town called Tirupur, and near the Tirupur, there is a place called Tirumurugan. So when Sundara was coming somewhere near there, in those days, right? This is 1300 years ago, 1200 years ago, right? So as he was going by, jungle was there, and he was crossing the jungle, and then there were a lot of what you can call, in Tamil they call them Vedar, basically the people who are robbers in that jungle. So a lot of gang of robbers, they surround them, and then they threaten them that, hey, give us your gold and jewelry and clothing and all that stuff, otherwise we will kill you. So no choice, right? So Sundarar and his entourage, they whatever valuables they were carrying, they all, the gifts that cheramAn had given them, they hand over all that thing to the robbers, and then the robbers run away and they continue on their return. So they reach the next town. After they come out of the jungle, they reach the next town called the Tirumurugan. And he goes to Shiva there and says, oh Shiva, this place has no protection. There are robbers everywhere, and they are like monkeys. They come, jump on us, and they grab everything and run away. Why do you stay in this kind of a place? So he sings one padhigam. It's called Kodugu Venjulai Vaduga Veduvar. And then at the end of the padhigam, Shiva is pleased, and then he sends his Bhutaganas to return all the wealth. Basically, this Shiva was playing Leela, that making Sundarar come here and sing a padhigam. And so Shiva returns all the wealth that was robbed from Sundarar's entourage. That way Sundarar basically got everything back. Then he returns to Tiruvarur and spends some time with Paravayar and living in Tiruvarur. And then after some time, his mind wants to go meet his friend again. I don't know how many months would have passed by. Maybe 6 months, maybe 4 months, whatever is the amount of time. And he wanted to go back to Chera kingdom and meet cheramAn perumAL, nAyanAr. So they he starts on his way, and he is on his way back to Chera kingdom. And as he comes near the Coimbatore area, because from Tamil Nadu to Kerala, in Keralam, because we have the hills, so there are only a few places where you can cross the mountains. So one of the places is near Coimbatore area. So he comes near Coimbatore area, and there is a place called Avinasi today. They call it Avinasi, but the olden name for the place is called the Pukkoliyur, and Avinasi is the name of the temple there, or the Shiva there. As he was coming into the town, into the Agraharam near the temple, as he was walking along the Agraharam street towards the temple, he was hearing music from one house. Nadaswaram and Tavil and all those instruments were playing, like a happy event. He could hear that music and song from one house, and from the opposite house on that street, he was hearing wailing sound. People were crying. He was puzzled, what is this strange thing, There's a happy event going on in one house, and this house across the street, something sad is going on. So he stops there and wonders, and at the time, people, Agraharam people who are outside, they see Sundarar coming, so they come and welcome him and fall at his feet, and then the people inside the house where they were crying, right? So they also come out, and then they fall at his feet, and then Sundarar asked them, what is going on here? I see, Mangala Vadyam from one house and crying from the other house. What's the reason? What's going on? So they say, the house where the Mangala Vadyams are being played, they have a son who is now 7 years, and they are having Upanayanam for him. And the house that is across from the where you are hearing the crying, these people, they also had a son of similar age, but he is no more now. The story was that about 2 years earlier, when the kids were 5 years old, they both had gone to the local lake to bathe and do all that, and then a crocodile had come and grabbed hold of one of the boys. So that boy was lost. And now 2 years have gone by, and surviving the boy who escaped, he is having a Supanayanam, and that's what you are hearing from this house. And the other house where you are hearing the crying, these people, these parents, they are thinking about their dead son and said, "No, if our son had not died, he will be 7 years old now, and we will be also having similar Upanayanam for him." So they are thinking about their fate and crying. So Sundarar felt very moved by this and said, "I want to help these parents." So he says, "Where is the lake?" So they take him to the lake and say, "This is where this happened." So from there he sings one padhigam. Yetran Marakken. He sings one padhigam. And by the time he sang the fourth padhigam, in the fourth padhigam he says, "O Shiva, order Yama to tell the crocodile to return the son." So at the end of that song, the alligator or the crocodile comes back to the shore and returns the child. And the boy who was eaten away 2 years ago comes back with the 2 years of growth, and he is like a 7-year-old boy now. So the parents, obviously you can imagine, they are extremely ecstatic. So Sundarar takes the boy and goes to the local temple, the Avinashi temple, and worships Shiva there and finishes the remaining padhigam, and then goes back to the Agraharam and ensures that the boy who has returned today, he also has his Upanayanam today. So he ensured that they celebrate Upanayanam for the boy, and then Sundarar proceeds on his way to Chera kingdom. So he comes to Kodungolur, the place where cheramAn perumAL nayanmAr is. So cheramAn perumAL nayanmAr is so happy to have his friend back again. So they enjoy and then they are happy. And after a few days, one day the cheramAn perumAL nayanmAr is having his morning bath and all that, right? So he probably went to the local river and have his bath and all that. Sundarar had gotten up earlier and he goes to the local Anjaikalam temple on his alone. And then as he was worshipping Shiva in the Anjaikalam temple, he sings a padhigam. Talaikku tillai-vāḻai anindadenne. And as he was singing the padhigam, suddenly a thought comes to him, saying that, hey, I have had enough of this life. I want to go back to Kailasam. So in one of the songs in the padhigam, he expresses his desire, saying that, I no longer want to have this worldly life. And then as soon as he made that request, Shiva decides to welcome him back to Kailasam. So Shiva tells the devas, take this elephant. Shiva has an elephant called Airavanam, which is different from the Airavatam of Indra. So Shiva has an elephant called Airavanam that is supposed to have numerous tusks, something like 2,000 tusks. And that elephant is, Shiva says, take this elephant and go in, welcome Sundarar back to Kailasam. So the devas, along with the elephant that Shiva gave, they come to Anjaikalam and they stand in front of Sundarar and says, "Sir, Shiva has sent this elephant for you to ride and come back to Kailasam." So Sundarar is very happy. He goes around the elephant and then gets onto that elephant, and the elephant starts on its journey to Kailasam along with the devas. And the cheramAn perumAL nayanmar was not there, but he was having his bath in the river or wherever, and then suddenly in his mind he feels that something is going on, so he immediately rushes to the temple to see Sundarar, and he finds Sundarar is already on his way to Kailasam. So he gets on his horse, and in the ear of his horse he chants the Panchaksharam mantram, and then as soon as that is chanted in the ear of the horse starts climbing. Just like the elephant was going on the going to Kailasam, the horse started going to Kailasam too. And in fact, the horse overtakes the elephant and goes to Kailasam first. And Sundarar comes, and then they both are ready to enter Kailasam, and then cheramAn perumAL nayanmar is stopped because he doesn't have invitation from Shiva, so he stopped. Only Sundarar goes in. And when Sundarar was going on this elephant, right, he was singing a wonderful padhigam, his final padhigam, Thanane mun padaithan. And he sings that padhigam, and in the padhigam he describes how the devas are inviting him or accompanying him or welcoming him to Kailasam and all that. So he goes to Kailasam, and then he goes in front of Shiva. Then Sundarar says, my friend cheramAn perumAL nayanmar is waiting outside. Then Shiva says, okay, let him in, and then cheramAn perumAl nayanmar comes in, and Shiva says, I did not call you here, why did you come? Then cheramAn perumAl nayanmar says, Lord, I don't know. It's Sundarar's grace that pushed me here. I didn't do anything. It's Sundarar's grace that brought me here. And then he says, I have composed a hymn. I want to sing it to you. Shiva says, okay, and then he sings a padhigam work called tillai-vāḻ. cheramAn perumAl nayanmar has sung several works. One of them was Ponvannathu Andadi that he sang when he went to Chidambaram. And this one he sings in Kailasam. tillai-vāḻ. Shiva was pleased, and then Shiva makes cheramAn perumAl nayanmar one of the chiefs of the Bhutaganas, and Sundarar returns back to his previous post of being a close attendant of Shiva. And the other two attendants of Parvati, right, those who were born in Tiruvarur and Tiruvottriyur, Paravayar and Sangaliyar, they returned back as Kamalini and Aninjita. They returned back to Parvati's service. And now these two padhigams that they sang, the Thanane mun padaithan padhigam of Sundarar, which he sang as he was going on the elephant to Kailasam, and the tillai-vāḻ that cheramAn perumAl nayanmar sang when he was in Kailasam, those two were returned to us through others. Varunan brought one of the Sundarar's padhigam to Anjaikalam, and it is said that Shasta brought tillai-vāḻ to Chola kingdom, a place called Tirupidavur. So that's how we have those two works available to us. And with that, we conclude Sundarar's story. This is Sundarar's story is one of the most amazing stories, as you would have seen through the last 3-4 sessions. Starts in Kailasam, comes to Bhulokam, does so many wonderful things, becomes a friend of Shiva. Shiva plays Leelas, Sundarar plays mischief. All that happens, and finally he returns back to Kailasam. So Sundarar's story starts from Kailasam, ends in Kailasam. So that is the conclusion of all the 63 nayanmar stories that we have seen in Periya Puranam that have been sung in tiruttoṇḍattogai. And we have also seen the 9 classes of devotees, the tillai-vāḻ, andaṇar, and Pattarai Panivargal, and all those groups of devotees. We have seen all of them. So with that, we conclude the 7.13 in tiruttoṇḍattogai and all the Periya Puranam stories of the 63 nayanmars. So if you have any thoughts, comments, we can talk. If you are unmute, you can unmute and talk.
I think you answered my question right after it, because I said, how did the padhigams reach to us when Sundarar and has already, reached Kailasam?
Gone there, yeah. Gone. How come it came from Kailasam back to earth? Good question. Good thought. Yeah. In fact, in the Sundarar's final padhigam, it is 7.100. In that final padhigam, in the final song, he says, "O Varuna, take this and give it to Anjekalam's Lord of Anjekalam." So he explicitly states that in the final song of final padhigam, Sundarar's case. So that's documented in his padhigam itself.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments? If not, we can listen to the whole padhigam once again. As a concluding session, we can listen to the 7.13 in padhigam that Nodwar sings, right? We can listen to Sadgurunathan.
Yes.
Okay.
திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். தலம் திருவாரூர். தில்லை-வாழ் அந்தணர்தம் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன். தில்லை-வாழ் அந்தணர்தம் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன். தில்லை-வாழ் அந்தணர்தம் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன். திருநீலகண்டத்து குயவனார்க்கு அடியேன். இல்லையே என்னாத இயற்பகைக்கும் அடியேன். இளையாந்தன் குடிமாறன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன். வெல்லுமாமிக வல்ல மெய்ப்பொருளுக்கு அடியேன். விரிபொழில் சூழ் குன்றையார் விரண்மண்டற்கு அடியேன். அல்லிமென் முல்லை எந்தார் அமர்நீதிக்கு அடியேன். ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு ஆளேன். ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு ஆளேன். இலை மலிந்த வேல் நம்பி எரிபத்தற்கடியேன். ஏனாதிநாதந்தன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன். கலை மலிந்த சீர் நம்பி கண்ணப்பற்கடியேன். கடவுரில் கலையந்தன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன். மலை மலிந்த தோள் வள்ளல் மானக்கஞ்சாரன் எஞ்சாத வாட்டாயன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன். அலைமலிந்த புனல் மங்கை ஆனாயற்கடியேன். ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்காளே. மும்மையால் உலகு ஆண்ட மூர்த்திக்கும் அடியேன். முருகனுக்கும் உருத்திர பசுபதிக்கும் அடியேன். செம்மையே திருநாளை போவாக்கும் அடியேன். திருக்குறிப்பு தொண்டர்தம் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன். மெய்மையே திருமேனி வழிபடா நிற்க வெகுண்டு எழுந்த தாதைதாள் மழுவினால் எறிந்த அம்மையான் அடிச்சண்டிப் பெருமானுக்கு அடியேன் ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு ஆளே திருநின்ற செம்மையே செம்மையா கொண்ட திருநாவுக்கரையந்தன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் பெருநம்பி குலச்சிறைதன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் பெருமிழலை குறும்பர்க்கும் பேயார்க்கும் அடியேன் ஒரு நம்பி அப்பூதி அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் ஒலி புனல் சூழ் சாத்தமங்கை நீலனக்கற்கு அடியேன் அருநம்பி நமீனந்தி அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு ஆளே வம்பராவரி வண்டு மணம் நார மலரும் வம்புராவரி வண்டு மணம் நார மலரும் மதுமலர் நற்கொன்றையான் அடியலால் பேணாயம்பிரான் சம்பந்தன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் எம்பிரான் சம்பந்தன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் எம்பிரான் சம்பந்தன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் எம்பிரான் சம்பந்தன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் ஏயர்வோன் கலிக்காமன் ஏயர்வோன் கலிக்காமன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் ஏயர்வோன் கலிக்காமன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் நம்பிரான் திருமூலன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் நாட்டமிகு தண்டிக்கும் மூக்கருக்கும் அடியேன் அம்பரான் சோமாசி மாறனுக்கும் அடியேன் ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு ஆளே வார்குண்ட வனமுலையாள் உமை பங்கன் வார்குண்ட வனமுலையாள் உமை பங்கன் கழலே உமை பங்கன் கழலே மறவாது உமை பங்கன் கழலே மறவாது கல்யறிந்த சாக்கியற்கும் அடியேன் சீர்கொண்ட புகழ் வள்ளல் சிறப்புலிக்கும் அடியேன் செங்காட்டம் குடிமேய சிறு தொண்டர்க்கு அடியேன் கார்கொண்ட கொடை கழறிற்று அறிவார்க்கும் அடியேன் கார்கொண்ட கொடை கழறிற்று அறிவார்க்கும் அடியேன் கடற்காழி கணநாதன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் ஆர்கொண்ட வேற்பூற்றன் களந்தைக்கோன் அடியேன் ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு ஆளே பொய்யடிமையில்லாத புலவர்க்கும் அடியேன் பொய்யடிமையில்லாத புலவர்க்கும் அடியேன் பொழிக்கருவூர் துஞ்சிய புகழ்ச்சோழற்கு அடியேன் மெய்யடியான் நரசிங்க முனையரையற்கு 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 அடியேன் விரிதிரை சூழ்கடல் நாகை அதிபத்தற்கு அடியேன் கைதடிந்த வரி சிலையான் கலிக்கம்பன் கலியன் கழற்றத்தி வரிஞ்செயர்கோன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் ஐயடிகள் காடவர்கோன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு ஆளே கரை கண்டன் கழல் அடியே காப்பு கொண்டு இருந்த கணம் உள்ள நம்பிக்கும் காரிக்கும் அடியேன் நிறை கொண்ட சிந்தையான் வெல்வேலி வென்ற நிறை கொண்ட சிந்தையான் நெல்வேலி வென்ற நின்ற சீர் நெடுமாறன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் குறை கொண்ட செம்பவளம் இருளகற்றும் சோதி தொன்மையிலை தொன்மயிலை வாயிலான் தொன்மயிலை வாயிலான் தொன்மயிலை வாயிலான் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் அறை கொண்ட வேல் நம்பி முனையடுவார்க்கு அடியேன் ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு ஆளே கடல் சூழ்ந்த உலகெல்லாம் காக்கின்ற பெருமான் காடவர் ஓன் கழற்றிங்கன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் மடல் சூழ்ந்ததார் நம்பி இடங்கழிக்கும் தஞ்சை மன்னவன் நாம் செருத்துணைதன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் உடை சூழ்ந்த புலியதழ் மேல் அறவாட ஆடி பொன்னடிக்கே மனம் வைத்த புகழ்துணைக்கும் அடியேன் அடல் சூழ்ந்த வேல் நம்பி கோட்புலிக்கும் அடியேன் ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு ஆளே பத்தராய் பணிவார்கள் எல்லார்க்கும் அடியேன் பரமனையே பாடுவார் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் பத்தராய் பணிவார்கள் எல்லார்க்கும் அடியேன் பரமனையே பாடுவார் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் சித்தத்தை சிவன்பாலே வைத்தார்க்கும் அடியேன் சித்தத்தை சிவன்பாலே வைத்தார்க்கும் அடியேன் திருவாரூர் பிறந்தார்கள் எல்லார்க்கும் அடியேன் முப்போதும் திருமேனி தீண்டுவார்க்கடியேன் முழுநீரு பூசிய முனிவர்க்கும் அடியேன் அப்பாலும் அடிச்சார்ந்தார் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்களே மன்னிய சீர் மறைநாவன் நின்ற ஊர் பூசல் வரிவளையான் மானீக்கும் நேசனுக்கும் அடியேன் மன்னிய சீர் மறைநாவன் நின்ற ஊர் பூசல் வரிவளையான் மானீக்கும் நேசனுக்கும் அடியேன் தென்னவனாய் உலகாண்ட செங்கணார்க்கு அடியேன் திருநீல கண்டத்து பாணனார்க்கு அடியேன் என்னவனாம் அரணடியே அடைந்திட்ட தடையன் இசைஞானி காதலன் திருநாவலூர் போன் என்னவனாம் அரண்அடியே அடைந்திட்ட சடையன் இசைஞானி காதலன் திருநாவலூர் போன் அன்னவனாம் ஆரூரன் அடிமை கேட்டு உவப்பார் அன்னவனாம் ஆரூரன் அடிமை கேட்டு உவப்பார் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு அன்பர் ஆவாரே ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு அன்பர் ஆவாரே திருச்சிற்றம்பலம்.
So with that we will conclude our session today. So with this we have concluded the 7.39 tiruttoṇḍattogai padhigam and all the 63 nayanmar stories. Next time we meet we will continue with our padhigam. Tiruchitrambalam.